Hello everyone, this is WGM Sabina Foisor. You may be accustomed with my streams on US chess or maybe my class in session podcast. However, for today, I decided to showcase a game from one of the strongest female chess tournaments that took place in the United States, and that was the Cairns Cup, which took place in St. Louis at the famous World Chess Hall of Fame and organized by the St. Louis Chess Club. Shout out to them for bringing in the strongest tournament, female tournament, to the United States and having the strongest female chess players in the country, international masters Carissa Yip and Alice Lee. Both players were seated lower in the standings at the start of the tournament, but finished top 2 places. So for today, I wanted to showcase one of Carissa's games. Carissa in this tournament, she won it with 6 out of 9 and she got her second Grandmaster norm. In addition to that, she's decided to focus her career for a bit of time. We'll see where it takes her on chess. She wants to get the Grandmaster title, and she's the kind of dynamic, creative, and resilient player that you definitely want to follow. I cannot wait to see where her future in chess brings her. For now, let's look into her round 3. So at the moment, she had half a point out of 2, and she was paired against Grandmaster Nino Batsiashvili from Georgia. Carissa started with her usual e4, e5, and bishop c4. Though sometimes she chooses openings that are not played necessarily at the top level, so you might think there's not as much theory, Carissa always has in-depth analysis and understanding of the position to be able to create a lot of beautiful games. So if you might not be one of those players that likes to memorize openings, you can maybe follow Carissa and see how she manages to create dynamic play from respecting the principles. In this game, she transposed into an Italian after bishop c5. She continued with knight f3. Her opponent played knight c6, and now Carissa played a very interesting move, knight to c3. For those of you who play the Italian, you might be familiar with the idea of c3 d4 or c3 b4 attacking the center, but in this case, she had a different idea in mind. She was hoping her opponent would play d6. Well, not necessarily hoping, but that's a typical move for black in these positions. And now she played the move knight a4, grabbing the bishop and remaining with a bishop pair. She wanted to get a slight positional advantage out of the opening, and she managed to do so. In this position, if black chooses a6 instead to retreat the bishop in a7 and maintain it on the a7 g1 diagonal, well, white can maybe continue with bishop g5, pin the knight, have ideas with knight d5. We can even consider long castle. Who knows? Different game would have been played. But d6 was black's response. Knight a4. Carissa took the bishop immediately. And now we have a position where we have to figure out what to do. When you're playing openings in a principial fashion, you always want to look at your pieces and find ways to improve them every step of the way. And Carissa has a really good sense of the way she places her pieces and dynamics. So she played the move c3, and eventually she wants to prepare to play d4 and open up the center. Her opponent responded with h6 to stop bishop g5 ideas, and now castle. After black castled, rook e1 was played. The idea was to protect the pawn so that she can support the breakthrough in the center with d4. But black saw that and responded with the move rook e8. You may wonder, why are the rooks placed on files that obviously are not going to be opened? Well, the idea is black puts pressure in the center, and if you go for d4, the pawn will be captured, and then you have to deal with the weakness of the pawn in e4. In this case, you would even lose it. So Carissa chose this very interesting move. Looks dubious, but interesting in the same time. Bishop d2. That's not typically the place to put the bishop, but she wants to make sure she connects her pieces, and the bishop here could help later on with a plan with b4, a4, a5, and try to create some ideas on the queen side. In addition, she just develops her bishop, didn't want to put it there, which would be in the way of the rook to protect the e4 pawn. Bishop e6 was a move for black. Or bishop g4. Bishop g4 could have led to maybe h3, with the idea that if you take, queen takes, and I think we have a pretty decent position. But bishop e6 was actually played in the game, and White decided to hold on to the bishop for just one more moment with bishop e5, but her opponent was like, no, you're not going to hold on to the bishop for too long. Bishop d7, unpinning herself and threatening some knight e7. Now, these plans with d4 are difficult to meet now because there isn't a simple way to protect this central pawn. And if queen c2 were to be played, black probably could respond with knight b4, discovered attack, forcing the trade of the bishop, and the position is about equal. Not being able to create this breakthrough, Carissa decided to hold on to the position. And this is like a nice kind of approach when you don't know what to do. Improve the position of your pieces and sometimes learn to have patience. Wait. Sometimes your opponent makes mistakes when you do so. Black responded with knight e7, a very typical idea for Italians, bringing the knight towards the other side of the board and challenging the bishop in b5. If bishop c4 were to be played, this could be the response for black, so we wouldn't really have that much. Carissa traded and now played the move c4. I like this move because she places another pawn on light square, and even if she had to give the bishop pair, she had to trade it off, she puts her pawns on the other color than her bishop so that her bishop is free to go, which she also controls d5, so black wouldn't break through in the center, and now could consider some ideas with the a-pawn push. Black played knight g6, now h3 to stop any kind of knight g4 or queen g4 ideas, and black realized that knight f4, for example, would be met with bishop takes, pawn takes, and queen d2, and then you have to play knight h5, which wouldn't really be ideal or help black to follow through with the attack. So instead, black decided to trade their weakness. Both players are very strong and found ways to maintain the balance for quite some time. Development, not take, to help you bring the queen on a better square. Queen b3, let black capture in c4, so that now we have an active queen. After b6 was played, in this position, we can think of ideas with a4, a5 for white. And Carissa did so immediately. Now, black cannot stop a5, and if we play a5, then we'll find the entrance with the rooks on this side of the board. And, you know, with the position opening up, this bishop is going to be happy. So black has to focus towards the king. Knight h5 to bring the knight over here. And I liked Carissa's choice. She wanted to trade queens, because if she trades queens in this position, imagine black captures, white can recapture with this pawn, and with the c-file being opened, we can always play b3, and in some cases later on, b4, a5. But now black has the backwards pawn in c7, and that black has to stay now and protect. So, of course, her opponent chose not to trade queens and instead brought the queen towards f6 to put some pressure on white's king. Queen d5, no trade, and now Carissa still is trying to be putting pressure on black's pawn in c7. Now, if black doesn't do anything on this side of the board, definitely white's play is much easier and ready to break through with a5. So black has to do something on the king side and played knight f4, threatening to take in h3, and then this pawn is hanging. Now, you can choose to take the knight or not to take it, but two knights with a queen in combination certainly can create very unpleasant threats. So Carissa found herself in a situation where she had to give up the bishop. The position is slightly unpleasant for her, but that doesn't mean that she's not going to continue fighting. Like I said, she's got this resilience. I mean, even if she started with 1.5 out of 4, she ended up winning 4 games in a row. That certainly put a lot of pressure on her opponents. Rook e3 would have been the move that I think would be much safer, covers the third rank, has some rook lift ideas, and personally I would have chosen it, but that's why I'm not Carissa. She decided to complicate matters. She chose the move queen takes c7. Now, with this move, we're allowing black to take in h3, and after that, takes, we can play rook e3, bring the rook over, and who knows, you open up white's king, but you also open up the file. Maybe white can bring the rooks over and put some pressure. That's the reason why after queen takes c7, black chose a slightly better move, and that was queen g6. Attacking g2, g3, knight takes h3, and Carissa played the move king f1. Now, in this position, white seems to be quite safe, even if this knight was weakened, because there's always an idea to cover it on the third rank with one of the rooks. Rook e6 was played, and now rook a3. Rook f6. I think actually, by the way, instead of rook e6, maybe black would have played queen g4 or queen h5. Either one of these moves could create some unpleasant threats. Maybe queen h5, because queen h5 also, if the knight moves, there would be some entrances. But after rook e6 and rook f6, queen d7 was Carissa's choice. And I really love this move. This helps towards the end as well, because it keeps that pawn covered. But right now, obviously, the queen attacks the knight in a3 and has the ability to retreat towards the king side if need be. Black defended the knight with queen h5, and now this move king g2 was played, attacking the knight. Every person who sees this position imagines the black would have to retreat, in which case maybe we can trade knights and, you know, no cause for alarm, the material is equal. But black found this tempting sacrifice, knight takes f2. I'm sure Carissa has planned for this and was ready to recapture, and black doesn't normally have more than perpetual check after queen h2 if white chooses to play king f1. Queen h1, h2 is the way to repeat the position. And of course, after king f1, if you capture, attacking the knight, we can super protect the knight on the third rank, and there isn't so much you can do. Now, Carissa made an interesting decision. Unfortunately, I had to put a double question mark. I hope you can forgive me for that. The reason for it is both players have missed a very strong move for black, after which black could have been winning. But sometimes you have to take your chances, and depending on the time in the position too, your opponent may miss very nice nuances that could lead to a win. I want you to pause the video and think about the way for black to win in this position. What did you choose? Queen takes g3 or queen takes b2? I hope you chose the wrong one. Carissa hopes you chose the wrong one. But queen takes b2 was the correct move, attacking the rook, getting it to move away from the third rank. Then the rook is not going to cover the knight anymore. The queen can come back to g2, put pressure, and there won't be a way for white to defend in an easy fashion, because even if the queen comes to g4, it will be chased away very easily. And then this pawn would hang. Now, queen g3 was played, and Carissa immediately defended. She took the opportunity to cover her position immediately. She probably envisioned that her opponent would have this idea to play g5, g4, and try to win her knight, and she was ready for it. Beautiful prophylactic idea, king to e2, and attracting her opponent to go g4, because it seems that black is going to win material. Unfortunately for black, this is a huge blunder. Don't forget to pause the video and find Carissa's winning idea. So no, we are not going to move the knight anywhere in order to allow queen g2 and loss of material. We're going to play this brilliant rook to g1. You think you're winning a piece? Think again. You remain pinned here, and after king f1, the rook is protected. There's nothing else that black can do. Nino decided to sack the queen and played a few more moves, but even if rook g8, rook g1 idea is being threatened, after rook g3, there isn't so much that black can do. b5 was the final attempt to get this pawn to capture so that black can have some chances, but of course Carissa didn't even look at that. After queen g4 we're threatening mate, and queen f5 sealed the deal. I really hope you enjoyed this game, and I'm certainly looking forward to more of Carissa's. Thanks again, St. Louis Chess Club and Leonard, for organizing this tournament, taking great pictures, and congrats once again to Carissa for a brilliant performance. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to comment below, give us a thumbs up, and follow US Chess on all the social media accounts so that we know to create more of these videos. Have a great rest of your day, and see you soon.